So welcome everyone to Showtime Toastmasters Power Hour workshop. Our presenter tonight is Nancy Starr-Cassidy, and she, as most of us know, is not your normal Toastmaster. In her 34 years, she stepped up, been propped up, and booted into numerous leadership experiences. In 2004, she was elected to the International Board of Directors, and she received a Toastmasters Presidential Citation in 2013 for her dedication to mentoring others in leadership. This experience helped her in her career as the Learning Technology Manager at SRP before she retired in 2018. So tonight, Nancy's session is titled The Secret Behind the Blue Badge. So I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Nancy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bobby. For those of you that are not aware, this is a blue badge. And I can't begin to tell you how much of my life I had to dedicate to get this badge. The blue badges are given to past international directors and past regional advisors. And if you don't know what those are, you will have a chance this evening to learn about that particular opportunity for leadership in Toastmasters. I started Toastmasters with absolutely no intention of taking advantage of that leadership track. I was coming in to be able to feel more confident speaking and communication. However, I was recruited into Toastmasters by a gentleman by the name of Art Nieto. Art was a past international director. He had a blue badge. And he said something to me after I had been a member for about a month. He said, someday you are going to be a district director. What the heck is a district director? And why would I want to be one? That sounded like work to me. But it made me start paying attention. And once I went to my first conference and I saw a then district governor in action, I looked at him and said, what the heck makes you think I could do that? And he just looked at me ever so confidently and said, we're going to do this one step at a time. Trust me. And I did. I progressed through the club officer positions, and then I started paying attention to what that area governor was doing. And I said, I could probably do that. And thus, I stepped beyond my club and started my journey. Now, I did not take a straight path to international director. I took time to participate in committees. And as a matter of fact, after I was elected and served as district governor in 1997 to 1998, I spent the next 8 years supporting other leaders until finally someone said to me, why aren't you running for international director? And once someone put that idea in my head, I started looking more seriously at what that would really entail. And yes, I finally, after doing my homework, took the plunge and I got elected. I've served. And one of the many secrets behind the blue badge is once you get it, you never get to just be a plain old Toastmaster anymore. Different people find different ways to have you continue to contribute to that. Now, what are we going to talk about today? I know the title says The Secret Behind the Blue Badge. There's really many secrets behind that. And I'm going to share with you a lot of the lessons that I've learned along that very arduous task, and what especially I've continued to learn after having acquired that blue badge. I'm going to start sharing my screen. There we go. So we're going to talk about the secrets behind the blue badge. And I'm going to begin by sharing a photo from a very recent social opportunity that we coordinated, with the fact that there are really only 8 current blue badge holders in the entire of District 3. And for Amar's benefit, District 3 is mostly the state of Arizona. We recently lost my mentor, Art Nieto. And so now we have 5 past international directors, a current international director, and 2 past region advisors. I have their names on the screen, and I know that many of you know and love these people. We definitely share a bond, but I can tell you that not one of us took the same journey to the blue badge. One of the tips that I can give you, if any one of these individuals decide to take you to lunch or for a cocktail, and they tap you on the shoulder to let you know that you have potential, I need you to listen. Always listen to the people who have already held the job that you're thinking about. That's a tip worth writing down. And as a reminder, each of these individuals have had a different journey and a different lesson. Let's talk about what I'm going to cover in this next 45 minutes. For those that may not be aware of all your leadership opportunities, I'm going to cover that briefly, because again, we want to make sure that you know that there's different ways of being able to tackle that journey. We're going to talk about some very important leadership lessons that not only I want to share with you, but that my fellow blue badge holders will want to share. And also, we're going to spend some time talking about the people that need to be behind you when you are taking any kind of leadership journey. And then lastly, we're going to take a few moments to talk about what's next on your journey. All right, let me start with what the leadership opportunities are beyond the club. Now, looking at this group, we can pretty much skip the entry levels because almost everyone here is considered being in an advanced role. For those who have not yet stepped beyond the club, the entry positions to get started in those leadership lessons, I already mentioned the important role of area director. A lot of people take the area director role because in District 3 alone, we need 30-something area directors every year. And that is the route that a large number of people take to fulfill the leadership requirement for their distinguished Toastmaster. But there are other requirements that are needed for that distinguished Toastmaster that give you those leadership skills without necessarily having a shiny badge. I want to remind everyone that participating in area and division contests, being whether as a functionary or even as a speaker, helps contribute to those leadership experience because it exposes you to new people. You are able to meet people, get to know people. These are people that you could potentially be reaching out to once you become a leader. Taking on the speechcraft, youth leadership, club coach, sponsor, mentors, those all, again, all have you working with someone else to be able to recruit new people, introduce people to Toastmasters. Again, it's expanding that experience. And I know that the district is always looking for people in the district committee roles. I had taken on, I think my first district role is I did 2 committee chairs at the same time. Again, remember I had Art Nieto as my mentor. I served in an administrative capacity that after I served as an area governor, I managed what they called the database chair, because before all of the technology that you had today, someone actually had to create a database with all of the different volunteers, set up the mailing list, set up, physically do mailing. And so that was one of the administrative roles I took on. I also took on the role of training judges for contests that year. And that was a very big eye-opening experience, because again, I got to meet a lot of people. I got to see how educational committees were run. I got to see how administrative committees are handled. So it was a really good experience for me. Now, most of you are already in advanced roles, and some of those are elected positions. Your division directors, club growth, program quality director, and district director, and we have almost all of them here. And there's some appointed roles along with that are considered part of the leadership team that also contribute towards your distinguished Toastmaster award. But we also then have the international roles. Now, just for the sake of being fun, can you just type in the chat right now whether you consider yourself currently in the Toastmasters leadership hierarchy at the entry, intermediate, or advanced level? And yes, thank you, Michael. In District 3, our area directors are appointed, and in some districts, those are actually elected positions. Back again in the 90s, when I was area governor, I was elected. We changed that sometime later in the latter part of the 90s here in District 3. We have a couple that are not currently leaders, but we know you've had many of these experiences. And Connie, I know you're stating you're at entry level, but Connie actually is intermediate because she has served in some of these advanced roles. But thank you for being that humble. All right, lots of intermediates and advanced, so that is great. I want, especially for our entry-level folks, if I start using terminology or experiences that are not comfortable for you, if you need me to explain something, please enter that in the chat. My friend Bobby will help me monitor the chat to make sure that we are speaking your language as well. What I want to emphasize is that there's not a straight line to leadership. Once in a blue moon, you get some folks that come straight in. They're an area director, they get elected to division director, they go through club growth, program quality director, and district director. But that's actually not everybody's journey. Sometimes you skip a level, right, Michael Holian? And sometimes you know, you decide to step back. I know personally, after I served as area director, one of the reasons that I didn't immediately consider running for division director is that a good friend of mine, Terry Sparks, had decided that she really wanted to run for division director, and she asked for my support. So I actually took the time not only to help her get elected, but then to serve in those administrative capacities. And then after that year, I decided to step forward as a division director. So again, that year really helped me. Yes, we have several people that can skip roles. And again, we all bring something to the table, right? We're not just absolutely oblivious in the real world to leadership positions. So different people have some of these skills already. So they're in a position to be able to skip a level, if you will, or to take a different path than the typical one. Just like in the club roles, each of the officer positions build skills to enable you to move up to the next officer position, but it depends on what you bring. I was talking to my accountability partner, Trish Blackwelder, for those of you that know her, and she reminded me that what it takes to be able to continue to move up is not just the desire to take a position, but that you also have to have the skills and the readiness. And Michael, I see you raising your hand. What would you like to share?
Thank you, Nancy. And always make sure that you're checking out the prerequisites. For instance, there's a prerequisite to be a program quality director or club growth director, that you can do the other positions, but unless you've served as a club president, you cannot become a PQD or DD. And that has caught people before. So make sure you're checking your prerequisites before you consider that position. Thanks.
Perfect message, Michael. And for those of you that don't know, Michael is a sitting international director. He is serving on the board this year and next, and representing all of us in Region 3, which is a large part of the southwestern United States and Mexico. So he's got quite the skill set that he is putting into practice. What questions at this point? I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Does anyone have any questions about what opportunities are available to you? Why would you want to consider a particular role? Are there any of you that have aspirations for moving beyond the level that you're at? I see Marilyn.
I have a suggestion. I'm not volunteering for anything. One of the things that I learned back when I was in area, well, then it was governor, now it's director, but back then, I found that a really good way to learn about what was going on, find out about, shall we call them upper echelon roles, was to become part of the group that sort of caretakes the person. You travel with them to conventions, you travel with them to meetings, you talk a lot on the road. If you can find someone that you can volunteer to help out as a, gee, let me just hold your coat, you can learn so much about what's going on and what to expect. And Trish says we call those handlers. All right.
And that is true.
I'm a handler.
And Trish has had a great amount of experience. Again, for those of you that might not know my history, you try to find those people who have the strengths that you don't have. And we'll talk about that a bit more. But some of this level of campaigning, especially when you get into the international director, Michael had it a little easy. He didn't have to physically fly to every single one of the conferences. And it gets exhausting because for when I served, it was literally, I was flying every weekend and for 3 months in a row. And I couldn't remember what city I was in, let alone who the elected people were. It was, I don't know how real life politicians do it, but I would never be one. All right, I just want to make sure I'm not missing something else in the chat. Oh, thank you, Shelley. You are mentioning the time commitment, and yes, I don't think there's anybody here who can state that, oh, yes, oh, please take that role on. It doesn't require much time at all. Time commitment, we could do an entire session on, because if you let the job consume you to where it's equivalent to a second full-time job, that can take a major toll on relationships. And sadly, I have seen people step up to the trio levels and the director roles, and it has cost them either their jobs or their relationships. And if you don't have the ability to be able to surround yourself with the people that can support you and help you out with some of the time commitment issues and being able to manage all that, then you're going to reach a certain level, and that's as far as you're going to go. Because I love Toastmasters. I've given a large part of my life to Toastmasters, but it is not worth losing your job or your relationship over. So we have to talk about balance. Before I resume my presentation, I'm going to ask you to enter some more things into the chat. And we're going to talk now about some of the leadership lessons, some of the traits that you need to have, some of the skills you need to acquire before you consider some of these more time-consuming roles. So just quickly, let me know what you think, either what's the most critical skill or trait that a leader needs to have before they consider a bigger role. I see negotiation, interpersonal skills, personality maybe, no, listening, integrity, honesty, commitment, accountability. Listening comes back a few times here. Integrity again, knowledge, time management, being able to take feedback. That is a critical skill. Strategic planning, resilience. Thank you, Michael. That's a good one. Delegation. And especially during these times that we've been living in the last 2 years, let me tell you, the director role is far, far different than it was for me back in 2004. Times have demanded a lot more resilience and flexibility from our leaders. Delegation, conflict resolution. Conflict resolution. One of my favorite moments when Tim Swearingen was running for international director and I was his campaign manager, and we were in this very, very large conference room at the international convention where he was doing the candidate showcase question. And someone asked him about how to handle a situation where you had members of the trio that did not get along. And I will still remember my shock when he just looked at the audience. He said, "Take heads, put them together forcibly if needed to." And I was just like, oh my goodness. But he got pretty much a standing ovation for that answer. Now, not everybody can get away with that, but it got him elected. So. But yes, conflict resolution comes up a lot. Project management, thick skin, yes. Risk management, communications. All right, that's all great input. I am going to bring my screen back. And let's talk about, I'll call them leadership lessons, because I asked my fellow Blue Badgers what were some of the most important things that they could share about serving in advanced leadership. Some of you know Jim Sultan. He's a past international director that moved here to Arizona just a few years ago, and he shared with us that the most valuable lesson he learned and the most difficult to master was patience, because things do not move at the rate that you want them to in a volunteer organization. And patience to me means, of course, including that all-important listening skill, being able to stop your own internal, here's where I'm going to go, and really be able to understand and appreciate those that you need to work with to be able to get things done. So patience. I had the opportunity to serve with Ralph Wallace out of Albuquerque as an international director, and he was brilliant at planning. And he would share all the time, especially with our trio leaders, that 1 month of planning at the beginning of our year saves a lot of heartache and hard work in April, May, and June. And those words are universal, whether you're a club officer, whether you're stepping up beyond the club, that you need to understand that you have a very short time window in order to accomplish your goals. All right. Two of my favorite sayings came from a couple people that I have great admiration for. Many of you know our past international director, Don Griffith, here in Arizona. And I loved what he had to say. And he said that simply say yes the next time someone asks for your help. And that saying yes is what propelled him into running for international director in 2012. There was a need and people kept coming to him and saying, won't you consider it? Now, those of you that know Don, he does not just say yes immediately when you ask him a question. He gives it great consideration before he says yes. But he will do everything in his power to make it a yes when he's able to. And I love that. And I love the fact that he said that he's been paying dues for 25 years and he hasn't gotten his money's worth yet. He wants to keep learning more, which reminds me so much of our past international president, the late Helen Blanchard, whose favorite quote, if you get out of Toastmasters everything you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters, because there's always something new to learn. There's different experiences. Our organization continues to change. And so those are very important leadership lessons. My good friend, Tim Swearingen, also here from District 3, has a saying that he uses a lot. If you have 1 year to serve and the rest of your life to think about it, how would you approach this leadership if you really think about that? Because to me, this has a lot of meaning. It basically says, don't waste time. You've only got 1 year to serve. There's no guarantee you're going to be elected, especially in these consecutive elective positions. There's nothing that says you're guaranteed to go on. You have that 1 year that you have to serve and the rest of your life to think about that 1 year. So don't waste time, be present, make good decisions. Are you leaving the club, the district, your committee in better shape than when you found it? And especially things about EQ, if you will. Did you end up destroying some relationships during your year? Because you will spend time thinking about that. And let me just share with you a tip for those of you who have not stepped into advanced leadership. And I know many of you have experienced this. You do have to have thick skin, because there will be many times when you're making a decision or you say something and you have no idea that what you just did or the decision that you made is going to break someone's heart. And in a volunteer organization, we have people who leave because their heart gets broken accidentally by someone who said something or made a decision and they didn't realize the impact that that was going to have on them. And I will tell you that in the only regrets that I have in all of my year of leadership were those people that I accidentally harmed through making a decision or a comment and not realizing that I had that power or that impact on that person. So when you take this leadership role on, you can't just do it lightly. You have to understand that you are impacting people every day, both in positive ways, but potentially in a way that will cause you to really have to question what you are talking about or doing as a leader. So that can be very eye-opening sometimes as part of the leadership journey. And then, of course, I need to share with you that my most important lesson, which is if you want somebody to think something's important, then you darn well better act like it's important. And I learned this from past international president Robert Barnhill. When I was serving as, at the time, Lieutenant Governor Education, which is the equivalent of the Program Quality Director role. And he came to one of our conference and he asked me, he said, what's your biggest challenge in the district in being able to meet your goals? And I said, well, getting distinguished clubs. He said, great. So you think that's important? What are you doing at this conference that lets me know that being a distinguished club is the most important thing to you? Oh. So ever since that time, that is the message that I use. I apply this especially in my work relationship. I had an amazing and wonderful team that I managed while I was at Salt River Project. And this is what I had to ask myself every week when you get distracted with the stuff. There's a lot of shiny things that happen in Toastmasters and happen in any job. And what you have to remind yourself is what's important and what am I doing to help other people see that this is important. This is why I go crazy when I see everybody getting all wrapped up about contests. And yes, contests have a value to Toastmasters, and it's definitely opportunities for people to learn, but it's not the most important thing, right? So my question is, do you know what the most important thing is? And are you able to convey that to the people that you're leading? Let's think about that. So one of the slides I want to show you quickly before we have a discussion, which is, this is a page in the Toastmasters website about our mission. And I'm just going to quickly remind you that we have an international mission to empower individuals to become effective leaders and communicators. We have a district mission, and I know a few of you really know this message, which is to build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. We should all know the club mission by now, so I'm not going to read that to you. But if you don't know these, if you haven't internalized these, you are not ready for the next step, because this is what's most important. Now, we each have important things about the particular role we're doing, but if we're not following this, then we're not doing it right. And looking at our Toastmasters International core values, we're talking about integrity, respect, service, and excellence. If you are not sharing those internal core values, if this is not what you are about, then you are not ready, because this is what's most important to our organization, no matter what your role is, whether you're serving as Club Sergeant at Arms or you're on the International Board of Directors. This is what we're about. I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I'm just cutting to the chase. about what's going to help you, what skills, core values, and traits that you need to have before you even consider stepping up to leadership. Do we have any questions at this point? Let me stop sharing real quick.
We are halfway through, Nancy, just after, it's about 7:05.
Perfect. I'm actually on time. Any comments or questions about some of the values, some of the core traits and skills that we need to? Now, I don't want to discourage anyone, especially those of you at the beginning of your journey. My gosh, I certainly didn't walk in as an area director internalizing all of that. You know, it's a little unrealistic to expect people at the entry level to really understand and absorb all that. But by the time you're starting to get to the advanced roles, this is something that you should have internalized and understand before you consider moving forward. Michael, I see your hand.
Yep, remember the whole part of the journey is progress, not perfection, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me tell you, I believe you become a learned person through your mistakes. And then I could write we could do a whole nother session on the mistakes that I've made as a leader. I will tell you what, one of the biggest wake-up calls I had when I was Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, which is now the same as the Club Growth Director, I had Art Nieto as my mentor, who was the epitome of going out there and chartering clubs. He chartered something like 21 clubs my year. We did not make distinguished because I let too many clubs die. Why? I got distracted. I got put in charge of a big committee to reorganize our district, and I was distracted by all the shiny things. And I just thought other people would take care of that. And so we didn't make it. And it wasn't until I got to the convention when I realized it was my fault our district wasn't distinguished, because I lost track of our club growth and that entire mission about building clubs and ensuring that we had club excellence. So let me tell you, I stand on the fact that messing up can really teach you something if you learn from your mess ups. So it's, you know, it's an important lesson. All right, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint then. So let's talk now about people. When someone approaches me about, I really, especially at conferences and conventions, they get excited. They see the leaders. They see the fact that there's great camaraderie. There's a lot of support out there. There's exciting things to do. And their desire to serve has really been awakened, and they are ready to move forward. What's the first question I ask them? I said, that's great. Who are you bringing with you? And this is true whether you're going for an area director role, a committee chair, or any of the elected positions. Who are the people that you need to have on your side and part of your team to be able to move forward and try to reduce the number of mistakes you could potentially make, and try to help share that time commitment and that workload for you. So let's talk about who's supporting you. What kind of people do you need to have on your team? And I'm going to begin with the most important, which is mentors. And what I'm shocked about, especially once I was on the board, is how many people approached me and proclaimed me to be their mentor, when I was not their mentor because I didn't have a relationship with them. These were people that were admiring me as a role model. And that's great. And I loved it. And, you know, that helps make it all worthwhile when someone proclaims you to be someone that is showing them how to be a leader. But that's not a mentor. A mentor is a person who's going to actually sit down with you and be honest with you, both about what the job is going to entail, about what skill sets you have, what skill sets you're lacking, and to help you navigate whatever journey or steps that you're going to take. And you should have more than one mentor. I certainly had more than one. Art Nieto was not my only mentor. I had quite a few others. And I see Connie raising your hand. Connie?
I'd like to share my story because I'm so thankful and blessed that Nancy and Trish are my mentors. I was approached to run for the trio and my head got big and I'm thinking, wow, somebody sees me as a leader. And it was at an Epicurean meeting and both Nancy and Trish cornered me. And I think it was Trish. She said, why do you think you're ready? How many people do you have? Do you know what it takes? And it was a real eye-opening experience and a coming to Jesus meeting because I wasn't ready. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the network and the knowledge at that time. So I'm forever grateful that both of them took an interest in me and had that conversation. And I know that some people first starting out, just even as an AD, don't feel like they have a big network. They're scared to take on that position. And I was thankful at the time that there was always people, and that was my main concern. Is now it's like pulling teeth to get people to help you. And I don't like that trend. But thank you.
I can appreciate that. And yes, Connie, thank you for sharing that because I have had to share with people, ask those questions to help them realize that they're not quite ready for certain roles. And Connie, I will give you extreme kudos because what you did is you took the information that Trish and I and others have shared with you, and you have contributed in leadership ways so much value that you've added to the district and so many roles that you have taken on. And so even though you haven't been ready up until this point for the going into the trio roles, you recognize where your strengths are and you're working to continue to build those skills. So kudos to you. And that's really what a mentor should be doing, is to help you find your strength. Where are you going to be successful? How is that going to work for you? And sometimes, yes, mentors have to be both encouraging and realistic about where people's skills and journeys can go. Let's talk about this next group, because that's people who believe in you. And like Connie shared, there is nothing more exciting than having someone come up and say, hey, you should run for fill in the blank. And that is very complimentary because, again, as Connie shared, it's so exciting that people see you in this position. They recognize something about you that says you could step up to that position. What I also see is there's a lot of people that just plunge forward in that without being prepared. And sometimes that can lead to people being overwhelmed and end up quitting, or again, a lot of hurt feelings and things just going awry. We want people to be successful when they step up. And so you have to find those people that believe in you. And the people that believe in you are not just the people who like you on Facebook. You might have 1,000 followers on Facebook, but what I'm talking about is the people who believe in you enough to invest their time in you. That's really the secret here, because again, someone could just say, hey, you'd be a great area director or district director, but are they really there for you to help support you? So I always look for, when I get that message about, hey, maybe you should consider running for international director. When I got that, I didn't just think to myself, I talked to a lot of people. What would it really take? Who would be there for me? Who's on this journey? I talked to the people who were there before, people who have the blue badges, because as I mentioned earlier, if they say you're ready, you're probably ready. Or if they say you need to work on something, you probably need to work on something. And let me, again, for those of you in relationships, let me also remind you that you have to talk to your partner about that, because having a resentment about the time you're going to have to invest, the time away from family events, etc., is can be something serious. So you really do need to make sure that your partner is also someone who believes in you and recognizes that the time you're going to be contributing is of value to you and to the organization. The last category of people, I'm going to say the people who get things done. You know that adage about, if you want to get something done, talk to someone who's really busy and getting things done. And it's true, because there are doers and there are people who just say they'll support you, but are they actually going to be there when you need committee? So let me just ask a couple of questions, because I see this happen a lot. If you're doing all the work yourself, you are not a leader. It means you're a worker. You're a person who's getting things done. But to move on to any of those leadership levels, you have to have people that are going to help you actually do the work. Many of these roles require that you have committee chairs or committee people working for you. You have to know what skill sets you don't have and try to find people who have that complementary skill set. I mentioned earlier that I had a handler, and I highly recommend handlers for anyone who is especially having to work in a large group, because there's so many distractions. And having that person that will be able to make sure that you are where you're supposed to be and doing what you're doing and help run interference when there's distractions and stuff is really critical. If you're running for an elected position, then you need to have advisors, people who understand campaigns, that don't take advice from people who have not held that position, because they think they know, but they may not know. So there's very few people who are able to advise at a level beyond which they have served. Now, there are some people, and I'm going to use my friend Trish Blackwelder as an example, because even though she has never been an international director, trust me, that woman understands what the job is, because she's been working as my handler. She's been involved in a lot of activities beyond the district, beyond the international level. And she's one of the few people that I would trust to talk about international level, even though she doesn't have the blue badge. But again, surrounding yourself with those right people. So Michael, you have a comment.
Thank you, Nancy. We could go long on this, but the role of international director has changed.
Mhm.
And we were just talking about this at our gathering recently, and it was completely different when you were serving kind of as the regional advisor and international director at the same time. So I found that getting advice from people that had both very recent experiences. For instance, I talked to Karen Lucas, the Region 2 International Director, because she was one of the only international directors to have run a campaign virtually.
Mhm.
And that was important. So the people you know, but then go outside and talk to people who have done it most recently as well.
Excellent. So for those of you that are seeking to move up, seek the people that can add value to help you get there. Again, sometimes it's not who you know, but who you know that knows who you know, the person that you need to know. So part of that networking is really critical. All right, I have 2 more important secrets to share with you.
Before we
And-
move on,
Yes.
can
Thank
I
you,
just
Kate.
share one thing? You mentioned handlers.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of people will assume that you don't need a handler unless you're running for our, running for international director or something. That's not true. Because I was a handler to people like you and others, when I moved up into leadership, starting from division governor and on up through district governor, I had handlers. It was immensely helpful to have those people keeping me on track. So don't think you have to wait till you go for international office to have a handler. If you're a leader and you're moving up in the ranks, you should have a cadre of handlers. And some of my handlers are on this call.
Yes, I agree. All right, let me get to my next 2 key points here. And these are things that I really need you to write down. So if you have a pen and paper, or if you want to do a screen capture, I'm going to share with you a couple of things that made a significant difference in my journey. And one of the first was this book, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Now, I read this book 20 years ago, and I will tell you, it changed my life. It is an easy read. It has small sections that you can absorb them at a time, but what it incredibly did is changed how I deal with people, especially conflict. I had the hardest time confronting people, holding them accountable. It was so difficult for me. And reading this book allowed me to understand the concept of intent. We always get mad at that person that cut you off in traffic and you think they're, but what you realize is if you ever cut somebody off, it's usually accidental. And so we're assuming evil intent when they do it to us, but we're hoping they're giving us grace when we do it. So again, it's that idea of intent and the concept of 5 minutes of discomfort. If you have to have an awkward conversation, the first 5 minutes are what is uncomfortable, but once the person understands your intent is to help them through this conflict, then that usually allows better conversation. Crucial Conversations helps you with kids, with your boss, with your spouse, let alone all the different applications for Toastmasters. But it talks a lot about expectations and commitment. You can't hold people accountable for what they haven't agreed to. And I see this a lot in Toastmasters, that we have committee chairs that don't even let the committee know what success looks like. How can they be working together towards a goal when they don't even know what that goal is? Because we as leaders haven't had those conversations. And how do we help people who are not performing? We've seen a lot of cases. Again, I've got that badge of I've let people go or driven people out because I didn't know how to have that crucial conversation with them. So if you don't have this book, for Pete's sake, please get it, because it will change how you interact with people and truly live your life. Now, I want to make sure that I get down to the secret. Are you ready for the secret behind the blue badge? Because I'm about to share it with you. You got your pens ready? Because this is it. The responsibility of leadership is to create more leaders. What are you doing to bring other people up into the organization? The number one complaint, we heard about this from a couple of you already, so we can't get people to step up. Why can't we get people to step up? Because they think it's work, because we complain, because we are making people assume this is time and they have to do it alone and it looks like work, and we're not reaching out to people and bringing them up to leadership. Now, Art Nieto did not just tell me that I was going to be international director someday because he felt that I needed to rush right out and do that job. He did it because he planted a seed. It was 14 years later that I actually became an international director, but he planted the seed and I started taking that journey. What seed are you planting to be able to do that? How can you help tap people on the shoulder? How can you bring others up in the organization and let them know that you're going to be that person that's going to be there for them if they need it? What is the preventing you from growing others? We've all thought about our own journeys, but the biggest responsibility is the people that you do, the people that you've created and helped brought up and invested in as a mentor, and being able to really help them feel like you're going to be there to be successful for them. And that's the true secret behind the blue badge, is that when hopefully I tell you that you have potential, is that I have the credibility to make you believe that and to help grow somebody else's journey. I am in Toastmasters for life because watching people find their voice, step up to leadership and be successful, oh my gosh, to me, that is the biggest value that I get out of this organization. What questions can I answer for you in the final few minutes? Marilyn.
It's sort of a two-parter, but I'm going to give them to you both at the same time. You've been in Toastmasters a really long time. I'm not quite that long. But if you had to say, hello, Zoe. If you had to say, what was your biggest pleasure about the time that you spent in Toastmasters, and what was the most difficult thing about your time in Toastmasters? Would they be the same thing?
No. The biggest pleasure I had was when I walked on stage with people for being a distinguished district director, because it took an army to get there, and seeing all those people being able to celebrate that was my greatest moment. My worst moment was after my service on the board of director and having to be part of a process to have someone removed from the organization. And again, that's part of that crucial conversation. Something could have been done earlier to make that go away, and I realized that that was my biggest disappointment. Yes, Cynthia.
I wanted to share one of my lessons that I learned that helped immensely, and get your input on it as well. When I realized I wanted to go into upper leadership, I'm one of these that need to understand the fine print and the gray area. So I took the time to read in great detail that blue leadership booklet from cover to back, and then formulate my own questions. Because to see someone perform the role, to read the book and say, hey, or wow, they're doing a good job. Hey, they're missing something. From your experience, how valuable was it to have the Bible as that backup?
Thank you. And yes, Toastmasters has a lot of material, a lot of rules, policies, etc. And we have a lot of leaders that don't read those and don't pay attention to them and get caught. You can do some roles without following the key guidelines, but again, that's usually because they're being coached by someone who hasn't read the book. So reading the book is essential to understanding what's important, because there's what you have to do, and then there's a lot of things that, gosh, if you have time, let's also do all these other things too. But what's really important? Are they doing the important part? That's what I look for. Kathy, I think I want to give one more question, and then I know we're at the end of our time and I want to be respectful of that. So if it's quick, Kathy. And we can't hear you.
Kathy, you're on mute.
Kathy, you're still on mute.
Okay, learn how to take yourself off mute, a very important lesson. Okay, question. I'll ask this of you and of Michael, if you'd like to comment. What was the moment, or when was the moment that you decided, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to run for international? Or was there one moment?
Oh, there was. It was when Janet Barnhill put her little finger in front of my face and said, "You've been working so hard on everybody else's campaign. Why aren't you doing this yourself? We need you on the board." And as somebody like Janet Barnhill, past international president, tells you that you need to give serious thought to running for the board, like I said, somebody who has the badge tells you to do it, yeah, give some serious thought. But that was really the first time that I thought that maybe I could do this.
So Nancy, as we wrap up,
Thank you.
please tell us in one sentence what you want us to leave with tonight.
You have the power to make a difference in this organization. And it could be something as simple as telling someone that you believe that they could be a leader, because growing leaders makes you a leader. And that's what I want you to remember.
Wow. Thank you, Nancy. We really appreciate your session tonight. I'm going to stop the recording